Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening up something pretty heavy. The archives of Project Blue Book.
Yeah, this is a big one. We're talking about the official U.S. Air Force investigation into UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right. It ran for, 17 years?
From 52 to 69. And they looked at over 12,000 reports. A massive undertaking.
And the official line, the mission, was pretty clear, wasn't it? To basically prove everything was normal.
Exactly. Reassure the public, protect national security, find a conventional name, weather, planes, stars for every single light people saw in the sky, tick the box, move on.
But that's where it gets interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because they couldn't.
No. Despite all that effort, hundreds of cases just wouldn't fit. They defied every conventional box they tried to put them in.
So they ended up filed under just one word.
Unidentified. That single word carries so much weight in these files. It's the official admission of, we don't know.
So our mission today, for you listening, is pretty ambitious. We're diving deep. We've pulled out 15 of the most detailed, the most, frankly, unsettling cases from Blue Book and just after.
These are the ones with credible witnesses, pilots, police. Sometimes there's physical evidence, film, radar tapes, even effects on machinery.
We're not just reading reports. We want you to feel like you're there, looking over the investigators' shoulders. We'll examine the witness accounts, the physical clues,
and stack it all up against those official explanations, which, as you'll see, often seem, let's just say they stretch credibility thin. Really thin sometimes.
Think of this as getting to the core of why this whole UAP thing just won't go away. We're looking at the Air Force's own data, the cases they themselves flagged, as truly baffling.
And that credibility point is key. These aren't just random stories. We're talking trained observers, military pilots, police officers who know procedure, air traffic controllers watching radar screens.
People whose job it is to observe accurately.
Precisely. And the reports often come with official documents, sometimes physical proof like film or those weird electromagnetic effects we mentioned. It's documented strangeness.
And you have this constant tension, right? The Cold War pressure cooker, the need to project strength and control.
Versus the raw data coming in, reports of things they couldn't explain, couldn't intercept, sometimes right over sensitive bases.
So was it genuine investigation or public relations?
That is the lens we have to use. It was likely both, constantly pulling in opposite directions. Understanding that conflict is crucial to making sense of these Blue Book files.
Okay, let's start where the tension was highest. Up in the air. Military pilots, guys trained to the absolute peak, finding themselves face to face with objects that just didn't play by the rules of physics.
Yeah, aerial encounters where our best tech, our best pilots were completely outmatched. It's unnerving stuff. Hashtag tag 1.1, the Gorman dogfight. Fargo radar lock, 1951, North Dakota.
We begin with a real classic, the Gorman dogfight, Fargo, North Dakota, October 1st, 1951.
Our main witness is Second Lieutenant George F. Gorman. And crucially, he's a WWII combat veteran. Flew fighters, this isn't some rookie getting confused. He knew aircraft, he knew stress, he knew his machine.
Right. So he's up there, routine night flight in his F-51 Mustang. It's dark, about 9 p.m.
And he sees this light, small, bright white, maybe 1,000 feet below him.
His first thought, totally logical.
Yeah, must be a Piper Cub. Slow little civilian plane. Makes perfect sense.
For about 3 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Because when Gorman banks his Mustang, this powerful fighter plane, to get a closer look, the light doesn't just continue flying straight.
It reacts.
It anticipates him. It suddenly accelerates vertically, climbing way faster than any Piper Cub could dream of, like it knew he was turning.
So right away, the Piper Cub idea is out the window. He's dealing with something else.
Something else entirely. He described it as looking like a white ball of light, maybe 6-8 inches across from his perspective. But it's movement.
That's the core of it.
Impossible maneuvers, right angle cuts at high speed, dizzying dives, and the really eerie part? Absolutely no sound. None.
He decides to engage, right? Tries to chase it.
He does. He pushes his F-51, a powerful plane, but still a piston engine fighter from that era, pushes it hard, up to nearly 14,000 feet.
You can imagine the strain on that aircraft. High G turns, steep climbs.
He's redlining it, pushing the Mustang to its absolute operational limits, the engine screaming, the airframe groaning.
Meanwhile, the object
seems effortless. It zips around him, making these sharp turns that would tear the wings off his Mustang or at least make him black out from the G-forces. It shows no limitations at all.
It's like comparing a go-kart to something from another dimension.
That's a good analogy. And then the chase takes a terrifying turn. the light stops playing cat and mouse.
It comes right at him.
Head on, streaking towards his cockpit, Gorman realizes this isn't accidental, this is intentional.
He has to react instantly.
Dives. Violently yanks the stick to get out of the way, and in that split second, the light just zips upward. Misses his canopy by mere feet, he estimated.
Imagine the adrenaline dump after that. Wow.
He was visibly shaken when he landed, but his debrief was precise. He used phrases like complete awareness, thought behind its maneuvers. He was convinced it was intelligently controlled.
And this isn't just one pilot's potentially disoriented account. That's crucial here.
Absolutely critical. There was an actual Piper Cub in the area earlier, the pilot and his passenger. They saw the weird light, too. They confirmed it was moving independently and erratically before Gorman even engaged it.
And ground control.
Fargo air traffic controllers. They visually tracked the light as well. They saw it weaving around Gorman's fighter on their scopes and with their own eyes. Multiple trained observers watching the same impossible event for 27 minutes straight.
27 minutes? That's a long time for a misidentification.
It is. So what did Project Blue Book conclude after all that?
Oh, this is the classic part. A weather balloon.
A weather balloon. Let's just sit with that for a second. Does a weather balloon engage in a high-speed 27-minute dogfight?
Does it make instantaneous right-angle turns?
Does it anticipate a fighter pilot's maneuvers?
Does it make a head-on attack run and then shoot vertically away?
No. On all counts, it's just absurd. But it set the pattern. Credible witnesses, impossible performance, and an official explanation that simply didn't fit the facts. Dismissed, case closed. Next. Hashtag 1.2 Lockbourne AFB sighting, 1952, Ohio.
Okay, fast forward less than a year, July 1952. And the context here is important. This is smack in the middle of the big 1952 UFO wave.
Right. The Washington, D.C. sightings were happening around this time. Nerves were frayed. There was a real sense of something's going on.
So, Lockbourne Air Force Base, Ohio. Again, solid witnesses.
Multiple trained observers, control tower operators, the base commander himself, Colonel William Bauer, another veteran. After 10:30 at night, they see this brilliant white light.
And it's not just passing through, it's hanging around in restricted airspace.
That's the key point. It's maneuvering intelligently where it shouldn't be. Hovering, then suddenly darting, accelerating incredibly fast. Basically, it was making its presence known right over a military base during a high alert period.
So the Air Force has to respond. They scramble a jet.
An F-84 Thunderjet, piloted by Lieutenant William Pete Schwab, a much more advanced aircraft than Gorman's Mustang.
Schwab finds it pretty quickly.
Yep, spots the light, gets a lock, moves to intercept.
Yeah, same story.
Pretty much. Every single time Schwab tried to close the distance, the object just poof, accelerated away instantly, climbed rapidly way beyond the F-84's effective ceiling.
So even with a faster, higher flying jet, they couldn't touch it.
Couldn't get near it. And again, ground control and witnesses on the base confirmed Schwab's pursuit. Tower logs backed it up. He was chasing a real, visible object that demonstrably outperformed one of their frontline interceptors.
This Lockbourne case, happening during that 52 flap, it really hammered home a point, didn't it?
It absolutely did. It showed the military, during a time of national anxiety about aerial threats, was completely unable to control or even effectively pursue these objects exhibiting superior performance. It was a stark demonstration of vulnerability. Hashtag 1.3 Haneda AFB radar visual. 1952, Japan.
Let's hop across the Pacific now. Haneda Air Force Base, Tokyo. August 52. This case is significant because it has that perfect combination, radar and visual.
The gold standard, really. If you have both, it's very hard to dismiss. So, late night, after 11 p.m., Haneda Tower picks up a radar blip.
What was special about this blip?
It was strong, clear, definitely a solid return. And its movement was bizarre. Phenomenal speed, followed by an instantaneous stop. Just bang, full stop. Conventional aircraft can't do that. They need to decelerate, bleed off energy. This thing did it.
Speed to stop, that's a recurring theme.
A definite signature. And then you get the visual confirmation.
Right, guys on the ground see it too.
Airmen on the base look up, see a brilliant bluish white light maneuvering exactly where the radar contact is. Perfect correlation.
So scramble the jets again.
F-94 Starfires this time. They're vectored towards the contact. And this goes on for a while.
How long?
Over 90 minutes. The pilots see the light, they try to engage, but same result as Lockbourne.
The object either bolts away at incredible speed or just winks out. Vanishes visually, maybe off radar too, leaving them chasing empty sky.
90 minutes of cat and mouse with multiple pilots and ground control confirming. That seems pretty undeniable.
You would think so. Solid radar track, multiple visual confirmations from ground and air, extended failed intercept attempt. Case closed as unidentified, right?
Ah, but this is Blue Book. So
Yes.
what was the explanation?
Anomalous propagation.
Or anaprop.
Yeah.
Basically a radar mirage.
Okay, break that down. What is anaprop and why is it such a weak explanation here?
Sure. Anaprop is real. Certain weather conditions, like temperature inversions, can bend radar beams. They can bounce off atmospheric layers or even pick up ground targets, creating false echoes on the screen, sometimes called radar ghosts.
So like seeing a heat shimmer on a road, but for radar.
Kind of, yeah. But the thing with anaprop is the returns are usually fuzzy, indistinct. They tend to drift erratically, not move with sharp, intelligent maneuvers.
And the Haneda radar operators.
They were experienced. They insisted they were tracking a solid, defined object, making deliberate movements, speed changes, stops. Not the typical signature of anaprop.
But the killer argument against it?
Is the visual confirmation. You can't explain away multiple airmen on the ground and pilots in the air seeing a distinct bluish-white light maneuvering in sync with a radar blip for an hour and a half by blaming weird weather effects on the radar miles away. It just doesn't work.
The visual locks it down.
It should have. But anomalous propagation was a convenient, technical-sounding explanation that allowed them to close the file. Ignore the eyewitnesses, focus on the potential radar anomaly, case dismissed, public relations managed. Hashtags tagged 1.4, the Kinross incident, 1953, Lake Superior, Michigan, Canada.
Okay, this one's different. It's not just a chase, it's chilling. The Kinross incident, November 1953.
Yeah, this case leaves you with a cold feeling. It moves beyond just observation or evasion into something far more disturbing, erasure.
It starts as a routine intercept. Kinross Air Force Base in Michigan, near the Canadian border.
An F-89C Scorpion jet is scrambled. This is a serious piece of hardware for the time. Twin engines, all-weather capabilities, radar on board. Crewed by pilot Lieutenant Felix Moncla and radar operator Lieutenant Robert Wilson.
Their target. An unidentified radar blip over the vast, remote expanse of Lake Superior.
Conditions weren't great, apparently, poor visibility, but the ground radar at Sault Ste. Marie had a clear track on both the F-89 and the unknown object, the bogey.
Moncla radios in.
That he's closing in, guided by ground control, he's on the target, radar contact is solid, even if visual is difficult.
And then the moment that makes your blood run cold. 6:52 p.m.
The ground radar operator watches his screen. He sees the two distinct blips, the F-89 and the unknown target, moving closer and closer, and then they merge. Become one single return on the radar scope.
Overlap completely.
Like one was superimposed on the other, a single bright spot where two had been just moments before.
And after they merge?
Silence. The single merged blip just vanish, gone from the screen, instantly.
No radio call, no distress signal.
Nothing. Total, complete silence. From Moncla, from Wilson, from the aircraft.
Launch a search immediately, right? U.S., Canada.
Massive search and rescue. Planes, ships, combing that area of Lake Superior for days in harsh November weather.
What did they find?
Absolutely zero. Nothing. No wreckage slick, no debris field, no emergency beacon signal, not even an oil patch on the water. The F-89 Scorpion, a large twin-engine jet, along with its two crew members, had simply vanished without a trace.
Vanished after merging with an unidentified radar target.
That's the deeply unsettling core of it. Now, if it had just crashed due to mechanical failure or weather, you'd expect something. Wreckage floats, fuel leaves a sheen. A plane that size doesn't just evaporate.
So what did the Air Force tell the public? They lost a jet and 2 men. They had to say something.
Their official story was, well, insulting, frankly. They claimed Moncla must have misidentified and crashed while chasing a Royal Canadian Air Force C-47 cargo plane.
Did the Canadians confirm that?
Absolutely not. The RCAF stated emphatically they had no C-47s or any other aircraft operating anywhere near that location, at that altitude, at that time. The official story was demonstrably false.
A cover story.
Yeah.
But why? What were the internal documents saying?
The internal memos are revealing. They didn't talk about a crash into a Canadian plane. They confirmed the crucial detail, the radar convergence. They used careful language, referring to an overlap, acknowledging that the two radar returns occupied the same airspace simultaneously before disappearing together.
Not a collision, not a separation, a merge, then gone.
Exactly. If they truly believed it was a simple, tragic accident involving a friendly aircraft, why the blatant lie to the public and the families? Why the cover-up? The fabrication itself suggests they knew or suspected something far stranger and more disturbing occurred over Lake Superior that night.
Something they couldn't explain and definitely didn't want publicized.
It remains one of the most stark and terrifying examples in the Blue Book files, a direct military encounter that seemingly ended not just in failure, but in complete, inexplicable erasure. still gives me chills.
All right, let's shift gears. If those pilots faced impossible physics in the air, the cases in this section bring the phenomenon right down to the ground. Close encounters.
And these aren't just sightings. These are incidents where the UAPs apparently interacted with our technology, specifically targeting vehicles and machinery, often leaving physical effects. The silent killers part refers to how they could disable systems without sound or obvious force.
Starting with a big one. Leveland. Hashtag tag 2.1, the Leveland vehicle shutdowns. 1957, Texas.
Leveland, Texas, November 1957. This is probably the most famous case of widespread electromagnetic interference, or EM effects. It happened over a concentrated period, just a few hours in and around this small town.
And it wasn't just one car, it was multiple vehicles, completely separate incidents.
Over a dozen motorists, independently, reported extremely similar encounters. They'd see this glowing object, often described as torpedo-shaped or oval, sometimes huge, like 200 feet long.
Imagine driving down a dark, maybe drizzly Texas road late at night. You see this thing.
And then, bam! Your engine just cuts out, sputters, and dies. Headlights dim to almost nothing or fail completely. Your radio goes silent or fills with static. You're suddenly powerless, stranded in the dark with this massive glowing object nearby.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. Just
Helpless.
utterly helpless. And the reports are incredibly consistent. We have names, specific accounts. Pedro Salado and Joe Salaz, their truck engine died, lights went out. As soon as the object lifted off and vanished, everything clicked back on.
Instantly.
Like flipping a switch.
Exactly. Same story from a truck driver, Jim Wheeler. Same from another motorist, Frank Williams. Engine failure, lights dimming, radio interference, all coinciding with the close approach of this luminous object. Then, when it leaves, power returns.
The pattern is undeniable.
And it wasn't just drivers. The local law enforcement got involved. Sheriff Weir Clem, his deputies, they were swamped with calls. They talked to multiple witnesses, all telling the same story, all clearly terrified but coherent.
Did the police experience it themselves?
They didn't report vehicle shutdowns, but they did confirm seeing brilliant flashes of light in the areas where the reports were coming from, and they vouched for the credibility of the witnesses they interviewed. These were solid citizens, not prone to hysteria.
Okay, so multiple independent witnesses, consistent descriptions, specific EM effects, law enforcement corroboration. How did Blue Book explain this one?
Their official conclusion was ball lightning or electrical disturbances possibly caused by the stormy weather.
Ball lightning? Really?
Let's break that down. Ball lightning is a real but poorly understood phenomenon. It's typically small, maybe grapefruit size, lasts only a few seconds, and moves erratically.
Not a 200-foot-long torpedo.
Definitely not. And it certainly doesn't systematically shut down the engines and lights of over a dozen vehicles across several miles over a 2-hour period in a consistent pattern. The scale, the duration, the reported shape, the specific EM effects, none of it fits ball lightning.
It just feels like grabbing at straws.
It does. Leveland remains a cornerstone case for vehicle interference because the sheer number of witnesses and the consistency of the EM effects make conventional explanations like ball lightning seem completely inadequate. It points strongly towards an external, powerful, localized electromagnetic field associated with the object. Hashtag tag 2.2, the Val Johnson patrol car crash, 1979, Minnesota.
Okay, let's jump forward in time a bit post-Blue Book, but directly relevant to these EM effects.
Yeah.
Deputy Val Johnson, Minnesota, 1979. This one left physical evidence you could touch.
Yeah, this case is compelling because the evidence wasn't just testimony, it was the damaged patrol car itself. Johnson was responding to a report of a strange light. His last radio message was frantic.
What did he say?
Something like, "I've been hit." I don't know what it was, just pure panic.
When they found him.
He was disoriented, dazed. His eyes were incredibly irritated, watery, swollen, consistent with welder's flash or photokeratitis, like he'd stared into an intensely bright light.
But the car? The car was the real mystery.
His Ford LTD Cruiser became, essentially, Exhibit A. The damage was bizarre and specific.
Like what?
Okay, get this. The windshield was cracked, smashed inward in a sort of circular pattern. Not outward, like something hit it from the outside. Inward.
That's weird. What else?
The main roof antenna, one of those thick, durable metal ones, bent sharply backward at a weird angle, almost folded over.
Like hitting a low bridge?
Maybe, but there was more. The emergency light on the roof was cracked, the hood had a dent, but here's the kicker.
Go on.
Ford Motor Company engineers actually examined the car. So did other scientists. They couldn't explain the damage mechanically, that bent antenna. They struggled to replicate bending it like that without snapping it clean off. And the inward windshield damage suggested some kind of intense pressure wave, but there were no impact marks.
No signs of a collision with another vehicle or object.
None detected. But the most telling piece of evidence,
The clocks.
the clocks. Both Johnson's personal wristwatch and the electric dashboard clock in the patrol car had stopped simultaneously. At exactly 2:19 a.m.,
Whoa. Okay, that screams EM pulse.
absolutely. A localized, powerful electromagnetic pulse hitting the car at that precise moment. It's the only thing that really explains two independent timekeeping devices failing at the exact same instant, along with the strange physical damage and Johnson's eye injury.
And Val Johnson himself.
He was a respected deputy, no history of making things up. He stuck to his story his whole life. An incredibly intense, blinding light rushed straight at his car. Whatever happened at 2:19 a.m., it was real, physical, and deeply strange. The car itself was the proof. Hashtag tag 2.3, the Trancas incident, 1963, Argentina.
Let's swing back into the Blue Book era, but head south to Argentina. The Trancas incident, 1963. This one combines EM effects with physical traces and even biological effects. High strangeness factor here.
Definitely high strangeness. October 63, remote farmhouse. The witnesses were three sisters, the Moreno family. They were woken up in the middle of the night.
By what?
First, the dogs, going absolutely crazy, frantic barking. Then this sound. A low, droning hum that was so intense it was vibrating the walls of their house.
Just the sound vibrating the house. That's unnerving.
Deeply unnerving.
Yeah.
So they cautiously go outside to see what's happening.
And they step into what?
A scene straight out of science fiction. 5 glowing white orbs hovering low over their property. They seem to be emitting some kind of smoke or vapor.
5 of them, okay.
And then something tangible happens, a direct interaction. A narrow beam of light shoots out from one of the orbs and hits the metal latch on their garden gate.
Hits the latch. What did it do?
The sisters described the metal latch glowing red hot. Instantly, it blistered the paint on the wooden gate around it and scorched the ground directly underneath the latch.
Whoa. Okay, that's not light reflection. That's focused energy.
Yeah.
Like a weapon, almost.
It certainly sounds like directed energy transfer causing immediate, intense thermal effects. And the weirdness continued inside the house.
EM effects again.
Classic science. The entire house was filled with this eerie, pale, bluish light. Their radio, which was off, suddenly turned on by itself, let out a loud fizzing static noise, and then died completely. The phone line went dead, too. Total communication blackout.
Just like level and the electronics fail.
Exactly. But here, there were biological effects, too. The sisters reported feeling a strange, prickling heat on their skin while the orbs were present. One of them suffered severe nausea and headaches for weeks afterwards. Even the family dog, which was initially frantic, became listless and seemed traumatized for days.
So physical effects on objects, on electronics, and on living beings.
And the evidence left behind backed them up. Investigators found the scorched earth patch under the gate. They noted a distinct ozone-like smell in the air. They documented the warped, heat-damaged metal latch, and they found perfectly circular, flattened rings in the grass nearby potential landing traces.
Soil analysis.
Reports indicate soil samples showed mineral changes consistent with intense, localized heating, but not from a simple fire or chemicals. And the sisters, they passed polygraph tests regarding their account.
This case has everything. Multiple witnesses. EM effects, physical traces, biological effects, instrumentation confirmation, polygraphs, and evidence of extreme localized energy. Hard to explain away.
Extremely hard. It's a powerful cluster of high strangeness events supported by physical evidence and consistent testimony, making it a very challenging case for any simple misidentification theory. Hashtag 2.4, the Levittown Dome object, 1958, Puerto Rico.
Okay, one more in this EM category. Levittown, Puerto Rico, 1958. This one stands out mainly for the sheer reported size of the object.
That's right. Levittown was a new suburban community back then. Multiple residents started reporting seeing this massive object, dome-shaped, glowing with a soft, diffuse white light.
And how was it moving?
Slowly. And here's the other key detail. Silently. Completely silent, despite its reported enormous size, appearing much larger than any known aircraft.
Size and silence. That's another recurring theme, isn't it? Things that big should make noise.
They absolutely should, based on our understanding of propulsion. So local police were called.
Did they see it too?
Yes, patrolmen confirmed seeing the huge, silent, glowing dome moving slowly over the area. One officer specifically noted some minor but telling EM effects.
Ah, so it fits the pattern.
His squad car radio filled with static briefly as the object passed nearby, and his headlights seemed to dim momentarily. It wasn't a full shutdown like Leveland, but it suggested the object carried a significant electromagnetic field. Fleeting, but present.
So massive, silent, glowing dome confirmed by police causing minor EM interference. Blue Book's take.
Filed as a possible reflection of the moon off clouds, or maybe an atmospheric mirage. Standard playbook.
But you mentioned context earlier. Puerto Rico in 1958.
Crucial context. Puerto Rico was home to really important U.S. Cold War military installations, radar stations, communication hubs, maybe even missile tracking facilities. It was strategically vital.
So the idea of a massive, unidentified, silent object just cruising over residential areas near that sensitive infrastructure
Was a major national security headache. Admitting that something unknown and potentially advanced could operate with impunity in that airspace. Unthinkable from a public relations and strategic standpoint.
So the moon reflection story wasn't about matching the evidence.
It was about controlling the narrative. Dismissing it, however implausibly, was far preferable to acknowledging a potentially serious breach of sensitive airspace by an unknown entity. The sensitivity of the location likely dictated the explanation, regardless of the facts reported by residents and police.
All right, this next set of cases shifts the focus slightly. We've seen pilots, we've seen physical effects. Now we look at encounters where the primary witnesses were police officers, trained observers on the ground.
And what's striking here is how their credible professional testimony was often met with official explanations that were not just dismissive, but sometimes, well, utterly absurd. It often came at a great personal cost to the officers involved. Hashtag TAG 3.1 Portage County Police Chase, 1966, Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Well, let's start with a famous one, the Portage County Police Chase. April 1966, Ohio, stretching into Pennsylvania.
This involves Deputy Dale Spar and his partner, Wilbur Barney Neff. Early morning hours, pitch dark. They spot something.
What did they see?
A large, bright object rising up from behind some trees near the road. Spar described it as disc-shaped with a distinct glowing dome on top. Pretty specific.
And it wasn't just sitting there.
No, this turned into a full-blown pursuit. They hit the lights and siren, took off after it, and the object just paced them effortlessly.
How far, how fast?
The chase covered over 80 miles, crossing state lines into Pennsylvania. Their patrol car reached speeds over 80, sometimes topping 100 miles per hour, and the object stayed with them, maintaining a steady altitude, maybe 500 to 1,000 feet up.
Did Spar feel like it was reacting to them?
He was convinced of it. He felt he could see structure, that it was a solid craft, and he said it seemed to adjust its speed in direct response to their pursuit. When they sped up, it sped up. When they slowed, it slowed. Intelligent control.
And crucially, it wasn't just Spar and Neff.
No, this is key. As the chase went on, police officers from several other jurisdictions joined in. Multiple patrol cars, multiple officers from different counties all ended up chasing the exact same object, confirming its appearance, its speed, its intelligent maneuvering across state lines, overwhelming corroboration from trained observers.
A multi-county, multi-officer, high-speed chase of a structured, intelligently controlled object over 80 miles. Surely Blue Book had to take this seriously.
They investigated, and their final conclusion, brace yourself.
I'm ready.
The deputies, all of them, were collectively chasing a combination of the planet Venus and a satellite re-entering the atmosphere.
Venus and a satellite for 80 miles, pacing police cars.
Let's just apply basic logic here. Venus is a bright point of light, yes. But does it look like a 40-foot structured disk with a dome? Does it fly at treetop level and then pace police cars across 2 states at 80-plus miles per hour?
Definitely no.
And a satellite re-entry. That's a fiery streak across the sky on a predictable ballistic path. It doesn't hover, it doesn't pace cars, it doesn't maneuver intelligently for an hour and a half.
The explanation is just insulting.
It was scientifically bankrupt and deeply insulting to the professionalism of the officers involved. And it had real consequences.
For Deputy Spar especially, right?
Dale Spar spoke openly about what he and the others saw. He refused to be silenced. And he paid a heavy price. He faced relentless public ridicule, media harassment, and according to reports, it essentially ruined his career and personal life. All because the official explanation labeled his corroborated professional observation as a ridiculous delusion. Hashtag tag 3.2 Red Bluff sightings, 1960 California.
Let's go back a few years, 1960 California. Similar theme. Highway patrol officers, clear sighting, absurd explanation. Red Bluff.
California Highway Patrol officers Charles Carson and Stanley Scott, they're on patrol, see this brilliant red light ahead. What caught their attention was that it stopped, abruptly. Just hung there, motionless, right above the treetops.
Already unusual. What did it look like up close?
They got a good look. Carson described it as enormous, flattened oval or elliptical shape, glowing intensely red. And importantly, it had distinct white lights along its edge or rim that were blinking, sequentially, like running lights.
Specific structural details again.
Very specific. And one more detail that really stands out. A powerful beam of light shone down from the object. It swept back and forth across the ground systematically. Carson's words were, it looked like it was searching for something.
Searching. That implies purpose, intent.
Exactly. And again, that eerie characteristic, despite being huge and close, it was completely silent. Utterly silent.
Did it interact with them?
It seemed to. After initially moving away, it came back. The officers tried to pursue it in their cruiser. Carson described it as feeling like the object was deliberately playing with them. It would rise, fall, dart ahead, then shine that powerful searchlight beam directly onto their patrol car.
Whoa. That's not just observation, that's interaction. How did that feel?
Carson reported a profound feeling of unease, intimidation, like they were being toyed with by something far superior.
Okay, 2 experienced CHP officers, close range observation, detailed structure, sequential lights, a searching spotlight beam, interactive behavior, total silence, Blue Book's explanation.
Atmospheric refraction
Yeah.
of the stars and the planet Mars.
Mars, again. So a distorted view of Mars appeared as a giant, silent, oval craft with blinking lights and a spotlight, and it played cat and mouse with a patrol car.
According to the official report, yes. Officer Carson was, as you can imagine, livid. He called the explanation outrageous and said he was deeply offended. He insisted they saw a massive structured craft, not a wobbly star.
It's the same pattern. Deny the details, ignore the structure, blame it on celestial objects behaving in impossible ways.
And in doing so, dismiss the credibility and sanity of trained law enforcement officers who knew damn well what a star looked like. It cemented the perception for many that Blue Book wasn't investigating, it was debunking, regardless of the evidence. Hashtag check 3.3, the Exeter incident, 1965, New Hampshire.
Exeter, New Hampshire in 1965. This one is famous because it started with a terrified civilian and was quickly validated by police.
It begins with an 18-year-old kid, Norman Muscarello. He's hitchhiking late at night on a lonely road near Exeter.
What does he see?
He sees something rise silently from behind the trees near a farmhouse. He described it as enormous, maybe 80, 90 feet across, shaped like a flattened dome or a pancake, with 5 incredibly bright, pulsing red lights. And again, totally silent.
How did he react?
Pure terror. He was so frightened by the size, the silence, the pulsing lights, he literally threw himself face down into a roadside ditch to hide. He eventually flagged down a car and got to the Exeter police station, clearly distraught.
Was the officer skeptical?
Officer Eugene Bertrand initially was, yeah. He thought the kid was exaggerating, maybe saw a helicopter. But Muscarello was insistent and genuinely terrified, so Bertrand drove him back to the location.
Yeah.
And then Bertrand saw it too. Hovering just off the road, maybe 100 feet off the ground, just as Muscarello described. Massive, silent, with those bright red lights pulsing sequentially. Bertrand, a police officer, felt so threatened his first instinct was to draw his service revolver, even though he knew it was useless against whatever this was.
Wow. His police training kicked in, but faced with something completely unknown.
It was a primal fear response. And then another officer arrived, David Hunt. Pulled up, got out of his car.
Did Hunt see it?
Confirmed every single detail, the immense size, the absolute silence, the brilliant pulsing red lights, the low altitude hover. 3 witnesses now, the terrified teenager, and 2 experienced police officers, all describing the exact same impossible object at close range.
Okay, multiple police witnesses. Close range, detailed description, silence, low altitude.
Yeah.
This has to be unidentified, right? What was the official spin this time?
The Air Force suggested it might have been Operation Big Blast, an ongoing SAC bomber alert and refueling exercise happening in the region, or failing that, refracted stars or planets again?
Operation Big Blast. Were there B-52s and tankers flying low, silent, and hovering with pulsing red lights over Exeter that night?
Well, first, investigators later determined that Operation Big Blast had actually finished its runs in that specific area before the sightings occurred. The timing was off.
Oops.
And second, even if it hadn't, a formation of massive B-52 bombers and KC-135 tankers refueling is incredibly loud. It involves multiple conventional aircraft, navigation lights, engine noise. It looks nothing like a single silent house-sized disc hovering silently 100 feet off the ground with pulsing red lights.
So the explanation falls apart on basic facts.
Completely. Exeter became a classic example of the government offering contradictory or factually incorrect explanations to dismiss a highly credible, multi-witness police sighting. It really damaged trust. Hashtag tag 3.4 the La Serena encounter, 1977, Chile.
Let's briefly step outside the U.S. again. Post-Blue Book to Chile, 1977, La Serena. To show this wasn't just an American phenomenon or an American cover-up pattern?
Right, the pattern of official denial or silence in the face of credible sightings seems international. Here we have two carabineros, that's the Chilean National Police, including Officer Ernesto Vidal. They're on patrol near a hillside called El Romero.
And they see?
A single, bright, silent light hovering above the hill. Standard start to many of these encounters.
Does it interact?
As they get closer in their vehicle, the EM effects kick in. Their police radio suddenly fills with loud static. They completely lose the ability to call in their position or report the sighting. Total communications failure.
Just like Leveland and Val Johnson. The radio dies.
Exactly. Then, the light itself moves. It shifts position slightly, stops again, and then shoots straight up, vertically into the night sky. Gone in less than 2 seconds. And again, completely silent descent.
Impossible acceleration and silence. Check and check.
And there was local corroboration too. A farm worker in the area reported seeing a glowing oval object rise up from the same hillside around the same time. A local teacher also reported seeing a similar strange light. Consistent details. Color, silent movement, rapid departure.
So, multiple witnesses, police encounter, EM effects, impossible performance. How did the Chilean authorities handle it? Was it publicized?
Publicly. Very little was said. The official recommendation was reportedly no public statement. Keep it quiet.
But internally?
Internal military documents or reliable reports suggest there was significant military interest behind the scenes. Military liaisons apparently visited the site, interviewed the witnesses, and there are accounts of soil samples being taken from the hillside where the object hovered.
So collect the evidence but maintain public silence.
It mirrors the Blue Book approach almost exactly. Quietly investigate, gather data if possible, maybe even retrieve physical evidence, but do not confirm the reality of unexplained phenomena to the public. It shows this wasn't just a U.S. Air Force policy. It seems to have been a common institutional response globally when faced with credible UAP reports involving tangible effects.
Okay, final section. This is where the evidence gets potentially undeniable. We're talking film, radar tapes, even alleged crash debris. Physical stuff.
Exactly. And this is often where the stories of suppression, tampering, and outright erasure become most prominent. When you have something tangible, the efforts to control or hide it seem to intensify. Hashtag tag 4.1 the Great Falls Nick Mariana film, 1950 Montana.
Let's start early.
Yeah.
1950, before Blue Book officially launched, but investigated under its predecessors. The Nick Mariana film, Great Falls, Montana.
Nicholas Mariana was the general manager of the local minor league baseball team. He's out at the ballpark one afternoon, happens to have his 16mm movie camera with him.
And he sees something unusual in the sky.
Two bright, silvery objects. Disc-shaped, he said, maneuvering rapidly overhead. What struck him was how they moved together, maintaining a precise formation like they were coordinated, and crucially, no sound.
So he filmed them.
Yep. Rolled his 16mm camera, captured them moving against the sky. Pretty clear footage for the time.
This sounds like great evidence. What happened next?
The Air Force, specifically investigators from Project Grudge, Blue Book's precursor, got involved. They asked to analyze the film. Mariana gave it to them.
And when he got it back?
This is the controversial part. Mariana claimed, very forcefully, that the most important part of the film was missing. The first 35 frames or so, which he said, showed the objects much closer and clearer, revealing their disc shape more definitively. He alleged the Air Force had deliberately cut them out.
Tampering with evidence. That's a serious accusation.
Extremely serious. The Air Force, of course, denied it. Their official explanation for what was on the remaining film.
Let me guess. Venus? No, wait. Daytime. Birds.
Reflections.
Yeah.
Off two F-94 jet interceptors that were supposedly in the area.
Reflections. Okay. Did independent analysts agree?
Not really. People who looked at the film later, like the Condon Committee team, noted several problems with the F-94 explanation. The objects appeared circular, lacked any visible wings or tails you'd expect on a jet, even as a reflection. And their movements, sudden changes in speed and direction, didn't really match the smooth flight paths of interceptors from that era. Plus, no contrails were visible.
So the explanation didn't quite fit the visual evidence.
It felt forced to many. Whether the frames are actually removed or not is debated, but the Mariana case became an early, potent symbol of the clash between civilian captured evidence and official explanations that seemed designed to dismiss rather than clarify. It bred suspicion right from the start. Hashtag 4.2, the Delbert C. Newhouse film, Tremonton, 1952, Utah.
Okay, another film case, this one from 1952, firmly in the Blue Book era, Tremonton, Utah. And the witness here is key.
Absolutely. Chief Warrant Officer Delbert C. Newhouse. Not just any witness, a career U.S. Navy photographer and aerial reconnaissance specialist. This guy knew cameras, knew lenses, knew what things looked like from the air. His job was observation.
So what did this expert observer film?
He was driving with his family near Tremonton when they saw a group of objects high in the sky. He grabbed his 16mm movie camera, which he happened to have with him. He filmed about 10 to 12 bright, shiny objects maneuvering against the blue sky.
What did they look like on film?
He described them as circular, structured, metallic-looking things, moving in a sort of loose formation, but with individual, sometimes erratic movements, and definitely not birds or balloons in his professional opinion.
Okay, film evidence from a Navy photo expert. How is this handled?
This is where it gets interesting because you had inter-service analysis. The Navy, Newhouse's branch, analyzed the film first.
And their conclusion?
Yeah. The Navy Photo Interpretation Lab concluded the objects were intelligently controlled, self-propelled, structured craft. They specifically ruled out birds, balloons, debris, or known aircraft. They estimated speeds and altitudes that were extraordinary. A pretty definitive analysis from experts.
Wow, so the Navy says real unknown craft. What did the Air Force's Project Blue Book say?
Blue Book.
Yeah.
Well, they struggled with this one. The film was incredibly clear, nearly 1,200 frames of motion picture evidence. They couldn't easily dismiss it. But they leaned heavily towards the bird hypothesis.
Birds. After the Navy's expert analysis ruled birds out.
Yep. They acknowledged the film was one of the clearest and most puzzling they'd ever received, but they still favored seagulls reflecting sunlight as the most likely or perhaps least alarming explanation.
That seems like ignoring the conclusion of fellow military intelligence experts.
It does. It highlights that inherent conflict again. The Navy provided a clear, potentially paradigm-shifting analysis based on the evidence. The Air Force, tasked with minimizing the phenomenon, opted for a highly improbable conventional explanation, even admitting their own puzzlement. The Tremonton film remains powerful evidence precisely because it forced this internal conflict into the open. Hashtag 4.3, Minot Air Force Base radar visual, 1968, North Dakota.
Let's jump ahead to 1968, Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. And the context here is absolutely critical.
Extremely critical. Minot wasn't just any air base. It was, and still is, a major strategic air command base, home to a large wing of Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, nuclear missiles.
So we're talking about UFO activity directly over and around nuclear weapon launch sites during the height of the Cold War.
Precisely. The stakes couldn't possibly be higher. It started with security personnel at multiple different missile launch control facilities spread out over miles, reporting sightings.
What were they seeing?
Glowing objects, hovering, descending, moving silently between the sites. And critically, several reports mentioned the objects shining beams of light down directly onto the missile silos or the launch control centers.
Shining lights onto the silos. That sounds like deliberate scanning or targeting.
It certainly implies focused interest and surveillance. This wasn't just a light flashing across the sky. This was close-range activity over America's nuclear deterrent. So the base scrambled security teams, and they also diverted a B-52 bomber that was returning from a mission.
A B-52 got involved. What did the bomber crew see?
This adds huge credibility. The B-52 crew first picked up an unidentified target on their radar, moving erratically near the reported area. Then they got a visual.
What did it look like from the B-52?
They described seeing an enormous, brightly glowing object, significantly larger than their own massive B-52 Stratofortress. And its performance was astonishing, capable of impossible bursts of speed and disappearing from view almost instantly.
Larger than a B-52. Wow. So you have multiple ground security teams at nuclear missile sites radar confirmation, and visual confirmation from a B-52 crew of a massive, high-performance object engaging in apparent surveillance of nuclear weapons.
It's an incredibly well-documented and corroborated incident, and Minot isn't isolated. There's a well-known pattern of UAP activity reported near nuclear weapons facilities and test sites around the world. Malmstrom AFB, Warren AFB, sites in the UK, Russia.
Suggesting a specific interest in our nuclear capabilities.
That's the deeply unsettling implication. Now, how did Blue Book, which was nearing its end in '68, handle this bombshell?
They downplayed it.
Massively. They tried to explain away the ground sightings as stars or aircraft lights, and the B-52 sighting as, well, unclear, maybe radar malfunction or another aircraft. They absolutely did not want the public, or frankly, maybe even other parts of the government, thinking that our nuclear arsenal was being actively monitored or potentially interfered with by unknown craft we couldn't stop.
The national security implications were just too terrifying to acknowledge publicly.
Exactly. The fear wasn't necessarily the object itself, but the implication of vulnerability. Admitting that your ultimate deterrent was under surveillance by something unknown and superior. That narrative couldn't be allowed. So downplay, dismiss, compartmentalize. Hashtag tag 4.4, the Kecksburg incident, 1965, Pennsylvania. Now for Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. December 1965. This isn't just a sighting, this is the story of a potential crash, retrieval, and cover-up. A real-life X-file.
It starts with a fireball, right? Seen over multiple states.
Yeah, a brilliant fireball streaks across the sky, seen from Canada down to Ohio. People assume it's a meteor. But then residents in the small village of Kecksburg report hearing a thump or crash in the woods nearby. Some go to investigate.
What did the first people on the scene find?
This is where it gets wild. Witnesses described finding an object partially buried in the ground. It wasn't just a smoking rock. They described it as acorn or bell-shaped, maybe 10, 12 feet long, metallic, sort of bronze or coppery colored.
And the most striking detail.
A band around the base of the object that had strange symbols etched into it. Witnesses consistently described them as looking like Egyptian hieroglyphics or some kind of unknown writing. Definitely not standard USAF markings or Russian Cyrillic.
Hieroglyphs on a crashed object in the woods. Okay, that's out there.
Highly strange. And then the military arrived. Quickly.
How did they handle it?
Locals reported the U.S. Army showed up in force. They established a hard perimeter around the crash site, ordered everyone out, threatened people who tried to get close. Very serious, very professional lockdown.
And then what happened to the object?
Witnesses reported seeing military flatbed trucks going into the woods and later coming out carrying something large covered with tarps under heavy guard. The implication being they retrieved the object and took it away.
So, potential crash, unique object with strange markings, swift military retrieval. What was the official story?
The official explanation then and for decades after was simple. It was just a meteor that disintegrated, nothing landed, nothing was recovered. Move along, nothing to see here.
But that contradicts the eyewitness accounts of the object on the ground and the military retrieval.
Completely contradicts them. If it was just a meteor burning up, why the massive, urgent military response? Why cordon off the woods? Why the reports of a retrieved object?
And this story got even weirder decades later, didn't it? With NASA.
It did. In the 2000s, spurred by lawsuits and media interest, NASA was forced to re-examine the Kecksburg files. And in 2005, they made a stunning admission. They had lost the relevant records pertaining to their analysis of the event back in the 60s.
Lost them. Convenient.
Extremely convenient. Losing critical files related to such a controversial and highly witnessed event. It just poured gasoline on the fire of suspicion that Kecksburg involved the crash and secret recovery of something not of this earth, or at least not of conventional origin. It remains a potent symbol of alleged government cover-up regarding physical UAP evidence. Hashtag tag 4.5 West Palm Beach landing, 1952, Florida.
Let's rewind to 1952, again, Florida this time.
Correct.
West Palm Beach. This case is interesting because it falls into that rare category, a reported landing.
Yeah, landings are much rarer in the Blue Book files than aerial sightings. The witness here was a Mrs. Ruby Davis, described as a well-respected local resident.
What did she see?
She reported observing a luminous object actually sitting on the ground in a nearby field. She described it as disc-shaped, maybe 20 feet across, glowing with a pale blue light.
On the ground, did she get a close look?
Apparently so. She said it looked metallic, solid, with a sort of domed top, and she added an even stranger detail.
What was that?
She thought she saw fleeting, shadowy figures moving around near the base of the craft just before it took off, like occupants.
Whoa, okay, figures. Then what happened?
The object rose vertically off the ground. She described a faint, low humming sound as it ascended, then it accelerated rapidly and silently into the sky and disappeared.
Vertical takeoff, humming sound, rapid silent acceleration. Any physical evidence left behind?
Investigators checked the site. They didn't find any deep scorch marks like you might expect from rocket exhaust. But the grass where Mrs. Davis said the object had rested was noticeably slightly discolored as if affected by heat, and it was flattened down in a circular pattern.
So subtle physical traces consistent with something large resting there and possibly emitting low heat or energy.
Exactly. It wasn't dramatic burning, but it was physical evidence corroborating her account of something sitting in that spot. For Blue Book, a credible report of a landed craft, potentially with occupants, and leaving physical traces was highly problematic. Much easier to dismiss distant lights than something tangible on the ground. Hashtag 4.6, the Tana Island Orbs, 2003-2013 Vanuatu.
Okay, our final case takes us way beyond Blue Book, into the 21st century, but it's crucial for challenging the very framework Blue Book operated under. Tana Island, Vanuatu, specifically Mount Yasur volcano.
This case is fascinating because it involves phenomena observed repeatedly over years in a very specific, extreme environment and documented by scientists that seem to defy known physics.
Mount Yasur is famous, right? The lighthouse of the Pacific.
Yeah.
Constantly erupting.
Exactly. And the local Vanuatu people have legends about luminous orbs seen around the volcano. They consider them ancestral spirits. But starting in the early 2000s, tourists, local guides, and eventually researchers began documenting these things more systematically.
What were they seeing?
Luminous spheres of light, often bluish white or pale green, appearing above the volcano's crater, hovering, darting around. And sometimes witnesses reported seeing them inside the erupting crater itself, seemingly unaffected by the heat and explosions.
Inside the crater, that's hard to square with anything conventional.
Extremely hard. But the key scientific data came from a German research team studying the volcano. They were filming the crater with thermal imaging cameras.
And they captured the orbs.
They captured clear footage of two pale green spheres hovering directly above the molten lava lake inside the crater for about 45 seconds. Crystal clear visual evidence.
Okay, but the thermal camera,
Yeah.
what it showed, this is the mind-bending part, right?
This is the part that breaks physics as we know it. The thermal readings showed no abnormal heat signature coming from the orbs themselves. They were essentially cold objects, despite hovering directly over thousands of degrees of molten rock and volcanic gases.
Wait, how is that possible? If they were plasma, like ball lightning or some kind of volcanic gas combustion.
They should have been incredibly hot, radiating intense thermal energy, easily detectable by the camera. But they weren't. They were luminous, structured, maneuvering intelligently, seemingly, yet thermally, inert, cold light.
That just doesn't compute with known science.
It doesn't. We include Tana Island because it forces a crucial question Blue Book never really had to grapple with publicly. What if some UAP aren't advanced aerospace technology from somewhere else, but are instead natural phenomena, perhaps even Earth-based, that operate on physical principles we simply don't understand yet?
Things that are just as real, just as structured, just as mysterious, but fall completely outside the nuts and bolts framework.
Precisely. If Blue Book, with its mandate to find conventional explanations, had encountered irrefutable evidence of cold light orbs dancing over volcanoes, what category would they have even put that in? It shows the unidentified bucket might be far stranger and more diverse than just advanced craft. It highlights the absolute limits of the explanatory frameworks they were working with. Hashtag outro. So after digging through these 15 cases, spanning decades, continents, types of encounters, what are the big takeaways? What patterns just jump out from the Blue Book archives and beyond?
Well, the consistency is pretty staggering, isn't it? Over and over again, you hear about impossible speed, right angle turns, instantaneous acceleration.
That physics-defying performance is a constant thread. And the silence. Huge objects moving without a sound. That unnerving silence comes up again and again.
Then there's the electromagnetic interference. Cars dying, radios failing, clocks stopping simultaneously. Real, measurable physical effects on technology.
And the physical traces left behind sometimes. Scorched earth, bent metal, flattened grass, even those weird flash burn-like injuries. Tangible evidence.
And underpinning it all, the credibility of the witnesses. These weren't just random anecdotes. We're talking decorated military pilots, experienced police officers, radar technicians, scientists, people trained to observe.
Highly reliable observers reporting highly unreliable phenomena, you could say.
Yet, despite all that, the consistency, the credibility, the physical evidence, the official institutional response seems just as consistent.
Yeah, the pattern of minimizing, mislabeling, dismissing, explanations that often felt deliberately obtuse, Venus doing impossible maneuvers, weather balloons engaging in dogfights, radar mirages being confirmed visually.
It often felt like the explanation was chosen not because it fit the facts, but because it was the least disturbing possibility.
Exactly. Preserve public order, maintain the image of control, avoid panic, even if it means ignoring or distorting the data coming in.
So for you listening, after hearing these accounts, think about what that category unidentified really means in the context of Blue Book.
These weren't just fleeting glimpses or moments of confusion. Many were prolonged, interactive events, documented in detail, often by multiple high-credibility witnesses, leaving behind corroborated evidence.
Our conclusion from this deep dive has to be that the real mystery isn't so much if something genuinely unknown and anomalous was happening back then. The Air Force's own files show it clearly was.
The bigger mystery, perhaps, is why the official system seemed fundamentally incapable or unwilling to grapple with the reality of that data. The problem wasn't a lack of evidence, it was a profound difficulty in accepting what the evidence implied.
It suggests the mechanism itself was designed to manage the narrative, not necessarily to uncover the full truth if that truth was too uncomfortable.
Which leads us to a final thought, something to really chew on. Project Blue Book's stated goal, its official mission, was to find a conventional name for every light in the sky. To prove it all had an explanation within known science and technology.
So what does it truly mean, decades after Blue Book closed its doors, that its most compelling cases, the ones with the best evidence, the most credible witnesses, the most inexplicable physics, still sit there in the archives, officially carrying only that one single frustrating label?
Unidentified.
What does that persistent, unresolved status ultimately tell us about the true limits of our knowledge? And maybe, just maybe, about the things that might exist just beyond those limits, still waiting in the shadows.
A question that lingers, doesn't it? Still unresolved.
Definitely does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the chilling files of Project Blue Book.